Federalist number 9, part 1. A firm union will be of the utmost moment to the peace and liberty of the states as a barrier against domestic faction and insurrection. It is impossible to read the history of petty republics of Greece and Italy without feeling sensations of horror and disgust at the distractions with which they were continually agitated, and at the rapid succession of revolutions by which they were kept in a state of perpetual vibration between the extremes of tyranny and anarchy. If they exhibit occasional calms, these only serve as short-lived contrasts to the furious storms that are to succeed. If now and then intervals of felicity open themselves to view, we behold them with a mixture of regret, arising from the reflection that the pleasing scenes before us are soon to be overwhelmed by the tempestuous waves of sedition and party rage. If momentary rays of glory break forth from the gloom, while they dazzle us with a transient and fleeting brilliancy, they at the same time admonish us to lament that the vices of government should pervert the direction and tarnish the luster of those bright talents and exalted endowments for which the favored soils that produce them have been so justly celebrated. He uses beautiful language. He uses the language, he tries to show you a picture of a storm and calm before a storm. He says, if we do not unite, we will have a few days, a few weeks, a few months of calm, and then disaster will strike. Our enemies will make sure that there is division amongst us that will lead to distrust and war. So he says, do not be fooled by this calm weather right now. The storm of distrust, a war that will happen if we do not unite, is awaiting us. From the disorders that disfigure the annals of those republics, the advocates of despotism have drawn arguments, not only against the forms of republican government, but against the very principles of civil liberty. They have decried all free government as inconsistent with the order of society, and have indulged themselves in malicious exaltation over its friends and partisans. Happily for mankind, stupendous fabrics reared on the basis of liberty, which have flourished for ages, have in a few glorious instances refuted their gloomy sophism, and I trust America will be the broad and solid foundation of other edifices, not less magnificent, which will be equally permanent monuments of their errors. It says, by uniting, we can create a great republic and set an example, just like in the past only a few times governments have been established that have been able to build a good foundation for their society. We can do it by uniting and setting an example for the rest of mankind. But it is not to be denied that the portraits they have sketched of Republican government were too just copies of the original from which they were taken. If it had been found impracticable to have devised models for a more perfect structure, the enlightened friends to liberty would have been obliged to abandon the cause of that species of government as indefensible. The science of politics, however, like most other sciences, has received great improvements. The efficacy of various principles is now well understood, which were either not known at all or imperfectly known to the ancients. The regular distribution of power into distinct departments, the introduction of legislative balances and checks, the institutions of courts composed of judges holding their offices during good behavior, the representation of the people in the legislature by deputies of their own election. These are wholly new discoveries, or have made their principal progress towards perfection in modern times. Okay, I'm going to focus on this a little bit because it's important. This is the first place that he mentions the foundations of a good government. See, you division of power, checks and balances between different branches of government, between executive branch, legislative branch, judiciary. You divide power, you balance and check the different branches to make sure nobody abuses power. Another important thing he says election of representatives by you, the people. Another important thing he talks about, judges serve during good behavior. It means that as long as they don't do anything criminal, they will not lose their job, they will not lose their salary, their salary will not be reduced. This way they're independent of other branches. In the past, the judges would serve at pleasure of a king or a governor. In other words, a king or a governor, or sometimes maybe a council of legislature, if they wanted to, if they didn't agree with the judge, they would let the judge go. They will just take him, they will just tell him you cannot be a judge anymore. They would dismiss him. But now he says the judges serve during good behavior. In other words, as long as they don't do anything criminal, or they don't really go out and do something unethical, then they can serve without being worried about losing their salary, or maybe their salaries being cut in half. This way they can really be independent of other branches. So we will continue in part 2.